question, go ahead and do so.
I have a few questions before you get started.
I'm not started yet.
How long have you been doing segmenting?
I would say 3 years, maybe.
How long have you been turning?
Probably since probably about 15 years.
15 years.
Yeah.
And you're retired
I'm retired.
and you live here full time?
I live here full time. I don't sell any of my turnings. I donate them to people who accept it.
And do you teach? Do you teach segmented or teach turning?
No, I don't teach, but I'm happy to show anybody anything that I do. I have no secrets that I'm trying to teach.
And would you say it's difficult to start doing segmented?
I wouldn't say it's any more difficult than starting to turn. You've got to use your hands, you've got to have an idea what you're doing, and you've got to know how to do it. And it's not going to be great when you start, but as you get into it, it gets better and better and better. Okay? So the way I'm going to do this today is I'm going to show you a slideshow of segmented turnings. And the slideshow was given to me by a guy, Al Miyapki, who's the president of the Segmented Turners group, which is the subgroup in the AAW.
So it's a national group? Segmented is a national group?
Yes. Yes, I mean, I think we've got a couple of international people in our club. And then okay. No, wait, this isn't what I want to start here. Okay, so this is a vase that Al Miyapki made. It's not a vase, it's a teapot. And I won't talk about the handle, the lid, or the spout, but this is a closed segmented piece or a stacked ring piece. There's some different terminology. So what is segmented turning? Okay, can you guys see this?
Yes.
See the slides?
Yeah.
Okay, this is turning on a lathe where the initial workpiece is composed of multiple glued together parts to create patterns and visual effects in turned products. As compared to using a log or a big solid piece of wood to turn. Okay, so this is now an example of, as I showed you there, the stacked rings. Stacked rings, which basically is that you start off with a solid ring or not necessarily a solid ring at the bottom, and then you just make multiple rings of varying sizes, and I'll show you how to get to that once I show you the software. And then you stack the rings together, you can have a feature ring, more rings and more feature rings, and that's what that base is a stacked ring or a closed segmented right. This is identical to that, except that it's got a different feature ring in the middle. This here is a bowl. This is the view looking down on the bowl, and here is the base of the bowl, and then the stacked rings are just layered on top of it. And generally, the segmented system is in the bricklayer system of when you're laying them on top of each other. Okay, so this is open segmenting, similar to that larger bowl over there. And the difference in these it's the same, that there are layers of segments stacked on top of each other. The difference is that in the open segmented process, the segments on each ring are not glued to each other. They are glued to the ring below and the ring above. And that's how it stays together. Now remember, I'll show you how you've got total control of everything. But like here, this bowl is made of 48 pieces per ring. and it's still got 48 pieces all the way down to here. It's just that the size of the segment gets smaller. This one is another open segmented ring, but there's 280 pieces per ring.
Per ring?
Per ring. There's over 6,000 pieces in this bowl. A guy, Tom Lohman, made it. And then this is just showing that you can have segmented pieces and they don't have to be all the same size. You just, in your calculation, you've got to work it out how you're going to make the rings. Any questions? Just keep it, just answer.
Is there any particular glue that you use that you
I'll
find?
get to it. I'll get to it. Then there's laminations. Okay, so laminations are what we generally use flat wood. We segment, we just glue a bunch of different ones together and then cut them, cut slats at angles. And once you've got the slats, then you would you glue them back together and you can come up with any kind of, any limitation is your imagination. And that's basically what a lamination is. I'll show you enough of that. Okay, where we at to? So here, these two, this is a laminated bowl that was then cut into segments.
You're blocking the camera.
I am sorry. Okay, you can also have vertical construction called staves, where the pieces are long pieces and for the whole length of the base, and they glue together just in like a single ring usually. And it can be, you can make it very complex in the size of the stage and how you put them together. Then we also have bowl from a board. I'm sure some of you have done these bowls from a board. We've got a guy in the club, Jim Weeks, who's done a demo on those. And but basically it's a flat board that's then cut at an angle. The rings are cut at an angle in successive increasing sizes, and then they stack together sort of upside down, and you can then make a bowl out of that. Okay, so this is the art that I was talking to you about. This is a piece by a guy, Malcolm Tippett, who was one of the founders of the segmented movement. I've got a book by him over here, and that if anybody wants to borrow it, as long as I'll get it back, it's fine with me. And but what I want to just point out is that these tubes, as you would call them, the tube, they're not made in a straight piece and then heated up and bent like we do with regular wood. If you look closely at the bottom here, what it is these segments, and each ring here is like between 1/8 of an inch and maybe 3/16 of an inch. And they are then cut at the ring is cut at an angle and then all glued together, and that's how they make the curve. It's complex. Trust me, I'm watching do it. And they make all kinds of stuff like these sort of trumpets. And you can do this with flat wood, it doesn't have to be tubes, and you can just make what turns into art. I want to just show you these pieces are made by a guy. This, like, if you look carefully, this is a guitar. And these are the strings of the guitar. And this guy's name is Jerry Bennett. And Jerry Bennett is the guy who designed the jig that I can show you how to do to cut the segments. Most people use that. If you don't want to make your own, there's a guy in our club, his name's Pete Martin, who makes them commercially. I mean, they are just works of art when you see his work. Okay, so I brought a couple of books on segmenting that you could look through. Malcolm Tibbetts wrote a book, Dalmish wrote one about Ray Allen, there are a few other books as well. Not, these are just, that's just a sample that I brought. I brought 4 books. One's on lamination, which talks about that. Okay, so the designs don't have to be super complex in order to be elegant. Like here, if you look, you'll see, if you look in here, you can see how big the segments are as compared to like in that bowl that are 280 segments in a ring. So here there's 12 or so segments in a ring, and the feature ring is also very simple, but it's elegant. Okay. So the reason, why would you try segmented turning? One of the reasons I started getting it was it's got hard for me to pick up the logs to connect them to the lathe. And somebody said, hey, try this. So, here you can create interesting and complex color shapes and so on. It's very affordable. For example, what Frank just showed, that piece of board, if you bought that board is in some exotic ebony or some other expensive wood, it's really not expensive because you're only using little pieces each time, and it goes a long way. There's very little waste. And and then as you saw in as what you saw in the art things and so on, that you can accomplish things in segmenting that you cannot accomplish out of a solid piece of wood or out of a log. And what a lot of people really enjoy about segmenting is there's no hollowing. And I'll show you that. You could just turn the inside while it's open. Very simple. Okay, so why would you avoid segmenting? You can't do the projects in a Saturday afternoon. They take a long time. As I showed you, you can't use green wood. It doesn't work. And then there's a lot of time away from the lathe. You spend time planning it. You spend time dimensioning the boards that you're going to cut into rings. Then you spend time cutting the segments. And then eventually, when everything's all done, you've got to put it together and glue the pieces together before you can start making stuff. I'll show you how that works. You also need some special tools, which as a group of wood turners and so on, I'm sure it's not a problem. One more tool is all we need. The table saw is probably the most common one. That's where this jig works on the table saw. Then there's a drum sander, a disc sander that will flatten it, or a drum sander. There's a chop saw, and you may have a jointer or a planer. And you can use you can use the bandsaw as well. So the equipment is not the problem. So here, the design consideration. These are the exact same designs you run into when you're turning a solid log or just a big block of wood. That there's form. You can use the color of the wood that you can use. You need to worry about the grain alignment, whether you're going to turn it end grain, side grain, and how to. And then the patterns you can make with whatever you want to make. So the form is always the primary starting point. You can have the most intricate segments put together and absolutely wonderful joints and so on, but if the end line form is not gracious, the project doesn't work. All right, so here, this is Malcolm Tibbetts base that I copied on one of those. And yeah, he did this one out of, I think, what is it? Purdue, Wenge, and Maple. And, you know, then again, you can make, and again, you see that the segments are all the same number as they go round, otherwise the spiral wouldn't work. But they're just smaller segments in this area and larger segments in that area. Now you can also make segments out of straighter pieces, like making, you know, basically almost a bowl from a board. And but when you do start cementing the pieces together, you are creating stress lines. And then stuff like this happens. You don't have to ask me how I know that, but I can tell you I know that. Okay, so you start with a good plan. Now, I'm not going to go into any of this mathematics and so on. I'll show you a simple way of doing it. But just let me talk to you about the wordage and you know, the width of this is a segment. This is a segment here. The width of the segment is what determines, this is the inside edge, and this is the outside edge. So this will determine the wall thickness of your turned piece. Then you would cut it, the angle you cut it, that it would be depending on how many segments you're going to have. And the way, I think you guys can see how this template fits in here. This template is for open turning, and there's 12 segments over here. But I can show you that Jerry Bennett has made all of these, and half of these are for closed segments, and half of them are for open segments. And they work very well. Where we are. Okay, so the assembly process, let's go over this. You know, you need to base the materials on the grain pattern and the colors you want. Also, always remember that the rings need to end up flat in order to, first of all, join together with no spaces. If you want to, this piece. This is just an example I brought. I haven't glued these. I can show you how I glue them if you're interested. But it has to be flat, and the inside cuts have to be vertical. So when you're setting up your machinery, your cutting tools, whether it's a chop saw or table saw, the blade needs to be 90 degrees. Here's an angle gauge. So when I was talking about the dimensions of dimensioning the wood before you can start doing anything, I'll show you Sharon, do you want to do? Okay, we'll do it in a minute. That in order to get bigger segments or smaller segments, you know, it depends on how big you're going to cut the segments, and I'll show you how that's done. But you have to first just find out how thick each row is going to be, and then dimension the wood to that. I'll talk to that a little more. This is that sled that the jig that I was talking to you about that Gary Bennett design. That's over here. Okay, so what's the best glue? Okay, very simple, guys. Titebond original, mainly. There's some guys who use quickset, some guys who use thickset, some guys who use translucent. You know, there's a lot of Titebond glue, but the vast majority of us use just Titebond original. Okay, so here is when you glue the full rings, like I'm trying to show here. And this is an example here of showing where the dimension of the wood was much larger than the dimension there. And that comes from the design. And I'll show you where that comes from. Okay, so the issue with these are when you do this, that every joint is glued at the same time, in the same instant. So if one of them is a little off, if when you were cutting the segments, you move the wood a little or something, things go wrong, trust me. And, so these are not always perfect. You occasionally have to make repairs or redo. But there are some perfectionist guys in our group who glue what we call half glues. And by that, they glue one joint at a time. And the way that works is these segments, there are 6 segments in this semicircle. So what they do is they glue that piece to that piece and let it sit. And then that piece to this piece and let it sit. So each time it's just one glue joint and this to this. And then once they've set, then they take these two and glue it to these two. And again, it's just one joint. And then when that's done, they take these 4 pieces and join it to these 2, and again, just one joint. And in that way, they are perfect in, they close in the joints, there are no gaps. They then line them up with a little spacer to see if it fits and so on. But again, the problem with these is you've got to make sure that it's absolutely flat and that each semicircle is 180 degrees.
I guess you can't really clamp them while you're gluing them up.
The two,
Until the end,
are you talking about the 2 at a time?
2 at a time.
Yeah, you just hold it.
You just hold.
Yeah, you only have to hold them for 10 to 15 seconds, and then they stay. They don't open. All right. So, and then, here you can see them flattening the halves and then making the 168 exactly 160, and then you can flatten the total ring on the drum sander or the disc sander. Okay, so then you got to start stacking the rings. Now, some people, really get into it. These are just 2 rings stuck together, and I don't have that many clamps, but they've got guys who do this. And also, when they stack these, they just keep adding one at a time and keep each time just gluing the top loose piece. Other people can just use a weight, maybe a brick on top, and that keeps it down. I'll show you how I do that as well. Okay, so that's, then when you finally got it all together, then you can go and put it on the load. Okay, so now let's do it. Any questions?
Yeah, when you clamp, I have trouble, the rings slide.
Right.
Yeah. They move.
Absolutely. Yeah, and they go out around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's why I don't use that system. I don't use the clamps.
Well, when you're clamping the rings, right? Don't you clamp the rings together?
No, I'll show you how I do it.
Oh, okay.
I'll show you how I do it. Okay, so now let's talk about the mathematics. Okay, how you calculate this out. And this is here. Just spread these papers out. See, I don't have enough for everybody, but the big boys and big girls now we can share. Okay, so the software that I use is called Segment Pro, and it's made by one of the members in our club. His name's Lloyd Johnson, and he'll sell you a copy of this. And it's well, I don't know what you call it, but I can't sell this or even lend it to anybody else. It just has to stay on this computer. So, okay, so that's the program, and it starts like this. You get a blank sheet, and here you get a grid. And the grid is made up of blocks. Each block is an inch square, inch high, inch wide. And the way you do this, let's see, how did I make it smaller? Right. So over here, this is where now this program is complex. There's so much stuff in it that it's just like my phone. There's so much in it that I've never used, and but it's great. It's there if you want it. Like if you look on top here, it's got that's the bowl. Then it's got profiles and plans. And in the profiles, I'll show you a little later, there's, multiple profiles of vases and bowls and shaped things. And you can just download one of those, and then you can modify it or copy it or do whatever you like it. I'll show you. But to start here with this grid thing, you can just start with your own design, and you see it starts there. You can just make it one. Okay, and it shows you immediately what the bowl is going to look like. Now, if you look at the bowl and you just watch that you can change. You can change the shape, and it changes immediately in the bowl. So you can make whatever bowl you got. The only limitation is your imagination in how to design it. Okay, so let's say that's the bowl we're going to work with. So, also, if you look at it, if you put the mouse on the bowl, you can move it around and look at it inside, outside, any way you want. The thing I want to show you about it, so here it shows that this came to be 10 inches high. Now, if you want, just believe me that I'll show you in a second, that each row is half an inch high. So there's 20 rows to be 10 inches. So if we want to go less, you can watch the bowl. I'm clicking the size to make it smaller. So we're down to 8 inches high. And so there'll be 16 rows now. You guys with me? Okay. And it makes it proportional. Okay, so now let's go down here. All right, so down here, this is the mathematical guts of that bowl. So you can have, over here, that we started out with 24 segments per row. So I mean, we can go down to 12 if we want. We can make it up to 48. We can make it up to 290, whatever you want. It's good. And then here it shows you that the base, you can make this as thick or, the height of each ring, you can make it as much as you want, an inch. You can do anything. You can make it an inch. And then if you just want to see what it looks like, well, we've done that. That's what it looks like with the 1 inch high rings. But that's all within what you want to do with it. So we want to make that to a half an inch.
Seems like you have a whole class just on the mathematics.
Not from me. All right, so. I mean, you can determine what wall thickness you want to end up with. And that will help with the design of it. And so, so this is all within your purview that you can do, however thick you want the rings, however thick you want the eventual wall thickness to be. And I'll just show you one other thing here. So over here, we've got a, yeah, we've got a closed, it's a closed segment. If you want to change it and see what it looks like, you can click on there and see what it looks like as an open segment. Is that it? Change a few other things.
Tell it the amount you want it open.
Right there. So yeah, you have to tell it everything. And like here, you've got 12 segments and there's going to be an 8-degree space. Everything you want to change, you can change. All right, so if you look on the left, you see that's what the cross section of the wall looks like. And so you can see that some of the pieces, the dimensions of the wood are much wider than others. And that's because we've got to go through this, through the diagrams, through the design you've made. So, okay, let's now go to here. Okay, so in this bowl here, like, okay, well, one other thing I'll do before we do that. You can put the design in. If you want to change it, you go here to the paint, and it makes this. And so here it says that we've got all these segments, and we'll repeat. Say we want to go to this purple heart. So click on purple heart, and there's 6 repeats, and so you can go, there's 6 repeats, and then you can do there, and say there. All right. And if you want to make diamonds, you can make diamonds, and you can click on here, the diamond, and you can, here it wasn't 5. So you can go up here and make diamonds. So there's, and you can play with these combinations for weeks. There's no limit to what they are. Okay, so let's accept that. So let's go back to the bowl view. So now this is what the bowl looks like with the changes you've made. So now, okay, so you see on the top here, we've got the bowl view, which is what we're looking at. And as I said, you can look at it any way you want, inside, outside. And then I'll tell you about the profiles in a minute. But the first thing I want to talk about is the summary. Now, what you guys are holding, the piece of paper, that's the summary. So if we click on the summary, it comes up like this. And I don't need to. I don't need to expand this so you can see all the rows. But you see all these numbers of the dimension, the width is all crazy. So what they've done is they've got a little box here, optimize the width. So if you click on that and you look at these numbers, it changes to round numbers so that there are a couple of rings that have the same width as the other. So it just makes it a whole lot simpler. And then, like we added it, so now if you want to see what you have to do, let's go to here to row 4. Okay? Yeah, it will do that. So here it tells you that row 4 you need 1.7 inches each segment. The segment length is 1.7 inches. And the total length of wood you need is going to be 8.9 inches. Now, I always increase that by a minimum of 10%, maybe a little more, just to keep my fingers a little further away from the cutting blade. But you see, we used purple heart and maple. So it tells you that you're going to have 6 pieces of maple, and you need 4.6 inches of maple, and the same you'll need 6 pieces of purple heart, and you'll need 4 something inches of the purple heart. But plus, increase the size, at least 10 to 20%, and just to save your fingers.
I approach it a touch differently. I'll take the total length and add 3 inches. The 3 inches is to save my fingers, but now I know I have the exact length to create one.
Right, you know, I mean, the little extra that you throw away because you save your fingers is great, you know. So, I mean, that's just, we get to this age, we start hopefully being a little wiser, and we can do that. All right, any questions about that? Any questions about anything? All right, let's quit with this. Okay, let's start with that.
Is it hard to turn an open segmented hole? Is your full catch on the open part?
Okay, so let me just show you. I'll show you that, and the answer is no. What I generally do before I try and smooth everything, I just take some paper and just round the edges a little bit. If you want to be really sure, you can just go reverse. Can get both edges. Okay, so what I was saying that one of the advantages is no hollowing. So I'm not going to do endless amounts of wood turning here. But I'll show you that to answer your question was, it's relatively, it's the same turning. But you're turning dry wood. You're turning plain dry wood, not wet wood. Wet wood is a lot easier to turn than kiln dry wood. Oh, just as an aside, let's just let's see what I do. This thing doesn't quite fit there. This tool is not being like thin. So, you know, you need a flat surface to create, and I use a very simple. I have a tool that can get close to it, and then I just, you know, hold it flat, and it spins and makes it flat. I did that before I came. I didn't need to make a bunch of dust there for you guys. But then, like, I'll just show you, I'll just give you an example. Okay. To turn it, you can turn it, and just a point of view that what you're talking about, it's math, right?
Yeah.
Okay, is that, with the smaller pieces, like I showed you, the one with sort of 290 pieces, it's like turning smooth wood. Here, the bigger the pieces, the rougher it is. But I can't get this tail screw, this screw rest to get close to the wood. And so this is how you would clean it, you would clean out the inside so you don't have to do the whole. Okay? I don't need to struggle with that over here with you. What I would like to show you is how we add the next ring on. Okay, so there's another homemade jig. Russ Fellows, who was one of our members early on, he showed me how to do this. And the way this is designed, this goes into the center of the bowl. And then over here, I've got this aluminum piece of metal here, and I drew 1/4 inches away. So each 1/4 inch is a 1/2 inch, because it's, like on either side. And so I can make a ring any size up to way bigger than this. And the way this works is I try and line the edge of this up with the edge of the edge here, so that when I move it, it will go straight. So here, I've got a hole. This is the in the middle of the bowl. At the bottom, got lots of holes in, so an extra hole in the bottom works well. And there you can it fits there nicely. Okay, and then you can tell that how big this diameter is going to be from my markings over here. All right. Then the next thing we do is we find the Allen wrench. All right, so I pre-cut these using using the sled, the jig that I was showing you. And cut 12 pieces. I was trying to make some kind of a spiral here, so I had 6 walnuts and 6 ash, which ash is not an ideal wood to turn these with, because the ground's too open. So it's just, seems to turn it before. In the ground? Yes. Yeah, there it is. Okay. This is not exactly aligned with my ladies at home. So let's align it correctly. Yes, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. We're not gonna do, I'm not gonna do that, doing that out of turn here. So, this, what do you call this thing?
Index.
This index has got 48 markings. I've got 12 pieces per row. So every 4 inches, every 4 marks, it'll move 1 piece. So if you only move two marks, we go ahead. 1, 2. So the way I do this is do I want to thanks, Eric. Thanks. So I'll do this.
What's the adjustment you're doing on the back? The Allen wrench?
This is the indexing lock that locks it in so that that can move. And I aligned it up so that this was close to what my lathe is at home, which is what I made this on. So then when you cut the pieces, you're gonna sand them. You might want to sand them clockwise, otherwise it doesn't do.
Well, like, what, smoke that number?
I think it's fine.
Well, in the first you want to use round sandpaper, because the locks were round. And so you really just need one flat side that will sit through. And we wanted, this one we wanted at 7 inches diameter, so it's at the mark here. So I use my magic distributor. Be meticulous about the the exact spot you put it on, because then, it will be right when you get to the other side. It's really not really a piece of little rocket. You understand?
Al?
There's a dog.
Coming.
Okay. Okay. So that's generally about as long as you need it. Yeah. Okay. And you can get this. So it's just it's just a mark on it. Do the other side, because then when you smooth the outside, the marks go in. So again, if you're doing 290 pieces per room, some guys love it. Yeah. Well, we see that sometimes.
You turn the segmentable faster or slower or the same as a standard.
Students said that you then knock off the pieces. As soon as you get into it, you kind of, start slow and you start, how fast you can go.
Fast and go, you don't notice both of them segmenting.
You clean up the glue in the open part.
You, generally, that's not a problem. The glue sort of blends in. That's why a lot of the guys, use, translucent glue.
Hey,
Hold into resin. If you put that into a container and then take it out and then all those spots will be filled.
Yes,
So you can put sort of resin inside and outside of that bowl.
yes. You could just pour it solid, or if you had something that fit inside of it, like a waste block or something inside, you would save that much resin. Right. But yes, you could put that, pour it full of resin.
Balloon inside,
What?
a balloon,
Oh, no, because the balloon gets hot. I mean, the resin gets hot.
Yeah.
oh, well, cooler.
There's some sort of silicone mold. Why to put it in, so it's just, the resin will stick to it.
Depending on the shape of your hollow form, theoretically, yes, I mean, there's lots of different shapes of silicone molds or small bowls. Like this one, and you could put a bowl inside of this to fill it up, and then just put this inside the bowl, put the bowl inside of here, pour it, and you can fill it up.
A silicone bowl?
No, you could use any plastic bowl,
Plastic bowl.
Any plastic.
or I use plastic.
Yeah.
And spray it with a mold release and then stick. You can put a big chunk of wood in there.
But if you did that, you have to put,
Yeah. You put something down the side of it. Only bigger, fill it inside of it.
one of these ways to do that.
And if you use wood like this, and it would stick to the wood, you just have to turn it out.
Yeah, right.
Little amount of glue, put that on the face.
No. Because there's another layer on top. Yeah. The final layer is a solid layer. Well, it's a closed segmented layer, the final layer.
That glue's so strong. If you get a catch, then it's good coming for it.
It's stressful, thinking about it.
But this is another example of, using little pieces of wood and using a little bit of glue. You're not getting into lots of stuff. You're getting intricate with not a lot of stuff.
Looks like it takes a lot of time.
It does. That's the takeaway. It takes a lot of time. You can't do this on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
It's going to take you many Saturday afternoons.
Like a basket weave bowl. Basket weave takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Color remove.
Right.
Doesn't work for the ADD kids.
Little word.
So this intricate kind of work that you do is, reminds me of sort of what a dentist would do.
You got it. My life revolves with this 5 square millimeters. And I loved it. It was, truly, it was a utopian profession. Because you're doing stuff that you can see. And you're doing it for people who have an issue. And they never stop thanking you. Just all you gotta do is do it right.
What do we do?
getting there.
Gonna get it for them here? We'll have to do my ring.
Naturally.
6 more rows.
You get this kind of use every time you do a demo?
I'm married.
Oh, boy.
You're not married?
Oh.
All right, so you guys get rid of you, so that's okay.
How long do you let set, the glue set before you can turn?
Half an hour.
How long?
Half an hour, maybe, maybe an hour, it's a beer, it's just, thank you, I gotta do something else, I'm never sitting there waiting, it's like, it's a pastime, I live for time to pass.
Would you say maybe you have a journal or magazine?
Segmented woodtrimmers dot com. I've got it on here somewhere. But right, that's it. It's like $25 or something a year. Okay, so we got 12 rows on there. Oh, okay, so that's.
I'll go ahead and put another row on there. Pretty soon.
Oh, then, just what you gotta do is, just flatten the surface. Just flatten the surface. I would wait like go and have a drink, a cup of coffee or something, and I'm never sitting there waiting to go. So, no,
That was always something.
yeah.
So all these segmented turnings have a hole in the bottom piece. They have a hole in the bottom?
Oh, yes.
They do?
No, well, I do.
Why?
So that I can put this guy in there.
Oh.
And then I know. And if I have to turn it around, to finish the base.
Yeah.
I've got a center. For the tail stack. Thank you. The leg stuff, where it came from. And then I would finish putting all the layers on, but I'd turn the inside as I go, every few layers, I put on my go inside and smooth the inside. But I would only turn the outside once it was put together, because then I've got full control of the core. Alright, so one other thing. Excuse me. Okay, I'll make some of my own base grades. It's kind of simple to do. Now, what I wanted to just show you was the next two game is two pieces like that. So what I've done is I sanded this, I sanded the face here at home, and I sanded this on my drum sander. And the way I put it together is I can either use this guy, this one. Yeah. This is done here with roughly the right stuff. That's what it is. So, you can thread the good stuff, and then make sure the bricklayer pattern is good. And just hold it there for a minute. And we have a pin. I think it's in- here we go. So just hold it up there for a little bit.
That's when you go to cut across.
Not yet. Not yet. Yeah, I'm a dentist. That's okay. Then I would flatten this side and put the last ring on, and that's it. Any questions? 4 minutes ahead of time.
Yeah, 4 minutes.
Great.
Question for me.
You still have to clean up the inside, right? Because the clear diameter is all the same.
This one